We are we are live, but I haven't switched over to us talking yet.
And we are now live on IG.
Give me like 1 second, get my screen set up. Right. Okay. Starting it in three, two, one.
Oh, straight up, why not? What up, dude?
Yay. Hello. Welcome. This is Let's Talk Locking episode 14 now. Is that correct?
I think it is indeed.
Wow. And it's back to just us.
Right?
Um, yeah. Really quick. Yeah, welcome to Let's Talk Locking. This is the Campbell Locking podcast, hosted by myself, Little B, and Kai where we like to talk about all things Campbell locking. We are now streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram Live. So make sure you please follow and subscribe so you can be alerted when we go live. We also have the Let's Talk Locking Discord. You can join us at and meet the rest of the Campbell lockers from around the world. You can come chat with us. We're basically just getting started, so we love to have you as we build our community. And if you're watching live today, we really encourage you guys to join in the chat, whether you're in Twitch, Instagram, or YouTube, because we're kind of just fielding questions and topics from you guys. We have some in the bank that we got from our Discord, but we are very open to communicating with you guys today.
I think it's been a pretty hectic last couple of weeks trying to sort through all of the myriad of things that are going on right now. And so being able to kind of like talk about it and process things more as a community this time around. And then also just kind of like I think the takes kind of evolve as time goes on. And we all have different viewpoints that maybe we didn't have before. I think a lot of the things that I think about uh, changed pretty frequently. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Brian, but being able to talk about these things in a public format, and especially like a community format, will also, I think, do us all a favor.
Yeah, I think it really helped in the first week or so that we kind of really establish our grounding and our inspiration and our wants and needs and why we want to like be paying to the source. And in this case, we are talking about the Campbell lock, reclaiming the name of Campbell lock for the style of locking, right? Um, because as we've heard from more of our peers and heard from more of our elders, I don't know so much if like my way of thinking about it has changed. It's just you kind of realize there's so many different mentalities to think about. Whether like in our seat as like now running a podcast, how are we talking about it? How are we also like allowing our guests to speak their mind about it? And then we think about the generational issues of like especially towards our elders where they've lived full on lives. They're set in the way that they already think about certain things. And that's cool. That's fine. That's normal. And then there's also us in the modern like this era trying to think about how we pay things forward and do justice going forward. And those things will not often match up so much, right? And I think the big thing for me to really remember is that as we're paying things forward, I'm not trying to change anybody's minds who are of or are elders. I think that's like one of the biggest things.
I think I might, give the nod to Flow and Slim in this case really quick because Flowmaster released a video with Slim the Robot having an opposite view relative to what we saw. And I think that's okay, Like they have way more lived experience in the dance than I do. Um and I do not want to question what they have to say and what they think. But at the same time, there's a certain logic that got us to the conclusion that we met. And I think I kind of touched on it in a post, but I think we'll get to that later. But just really quickly, like, everyone has their own truth, and you are able to come to the conclusions that your lived experience brought you to. Of course, there are objective facts, but in something like this, where we are making the determination to do something from a place of gratitude and a place of healing, um, not to divide the community or anything, but to be able to bring something that sits more towards the how would I explain that? I mean, like, there's a sense of gratitude that comes in saying Campbell locking instead of locking, and there's a weight that comes with it as well. And it doesn't sit well with everybody because it can come off as hey, we are intruding on Don's dance.
Mm. Also, just if we're talking about like Flo's vid in particular, I believe it's still up, so
Mhm.
anyone can go check it out too. Um, I think it's important. Like, I know you're saying like not everybody agrees with it. I think it's really important to say like who doesn't
Yeah,
that we are hearing from directly, right? And it is Slim the robot, like from the lockers, and his point. It sounds like he's saying that there's the whole group was is what we're referring to when we said the word locking, which is yes and not a no, but yes, and there's also something missing there. Because what I was worried about, if we never had this conversation, is that the more we just said locking, and that maybe we're more teachers who weren't passing on the knowledge and history of Don, then the wishes of Don further get diminished, in that his fear was to really not be remembered or given the correct flowers for like what he contributed to the world with his dance, right? And knowing that that was like a part of his wish and that he named it, I think for us it just only feels right to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and just trying to make sure that he is in our collective history book, so to speak, as we move forward in dance, because we don't have history books, but as it like goes down, the standard of knowledge that we're trying to pass on to the students becomes really important for all of us teachers to kind of get to the same point. And that's kind of like why we were going in that direction.
and I think it's also kind of important to realize that when you actually look at the style of Campbell locking or locking, or however you want to digest it, one of the main issues that we end up running into less in the states and more overseas is people don't know who the elders are. They
Mm,
come into locking as a style, and they have no exposure to any of the footage of the originals. They don't know who any of the originals are. Maybe they vaguely know who Scooby is, or who Tony Gogo is, or who Alpha is, and rightfully they should. But when you actually look at you know the lockers, let alone Dawn, um, you end up running into issues of kids who have no idea what the style can like what the history of the style is, or what any of the culture or community that started it, much less the person who created the dance. So I think in being able to use the nomenclature of camp walking, that gives you a very visceral idea of, like, hey, this is named after somebody. Brian, I your audio is not in.
oh, thank you. Something I wanted to mention it from the podcast for last episode. I believe Epic was saying that he hasn't experienced or heard of teachers who don't mention Dawn. And I have seen that. I have seen teachers that for like all 8 like levels do not mention Dawn. And also in like in tandem with that, don't mention the lockers. They don't mention the group, the lockers. So it kind of like what like Slim was like saying, like, there was a whole group that was also a huge part of the movement. They weren't being mentioned either. So I want things to be corrected in that way that we're always trying to refer back to the lockers as the group and Campbell locking as the dance and would have also been potentially called the group, the Campbell lockers if things didn't happen the way they do
Quick correction:
Hollywood wise.
the Campbell Lock dancers.
Campbell lock dancers,
Campbell
thank
Lock
you.
dancers. Because that that history does inevitably matter, and I think that I'm a little bit more hard headed on it than say Brian is. Like there's a balance that we toe, but we still pay that respect and that love back because it's something that I don't know. Like if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be doing this podcast, would we?
Yeah. And there was something I remembered also from the last podcast that I was thinking about, and it's because we had to talk about this a lot during 2020, right? Like when we're trying to explain BLM or Asian hate to our elders, or even like during the Trump stuff. There's a lot of like the elders will not see the way our generation is seeing things or does things, but we're a lot more open-minded to words and vocabulary being changed and finding like what it means to be really respectful. And so something that was running into is like, yes, we always, respect our elders, but at some point you have to ask, are our elders respecting us? It doesn't mean that we have to like agree, right? But like, I see what you're talking about. Can you see what I'm talking about? Can you see the things I'm doing, trying to move forward and, be good for the community? I'm not asking specifically for your blessing, but do you respect that I'm doing something while not disrespecting you? So I don't know if that like hits something with a lot of people because I feel like, especially during 2020, 2021, there was a lot of trying to explain things to like our parents or relatives that were very difficult because they could not see equality or equity in the same way that we were striving for. So it just kind of brought up a similar feeling to me. Because again, like no disrespect to anything that Slim was saying. Okay, so no, sorry. One thing. And so I would not correct him, right? But I would also say, as we listen to our elder, that it is not okay to call Tony Basil, who was in the lockers, the girl. I understand, that is not something that's going to change from any one of our elders, but for us moving forward, that is not something that we do. That comes if we were to do that today, if I was to do that today, it comes off very disrespectful by not even acknowledging people's names, and especially in this case, Tony Basil's name. So it's just a lesson learned for us to make sure we are doing this well and correctly, and it's not like slap on the wrist on anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think if we're gonna bring that specific topic up, like you are giving in context, Slim was giving due respect to all of the original members of the Lockers, um, by stating the sort of things that they did and what they were good at, and he mentioned Tony Basil as the girl, and rightfully so. Like she was the only female in the group, and she represented. But didn't she do more than that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So
Like I
yeah,
can really see like from their point of view that is the nomenclature that they can use. And you know what? It's okay. But for us, in all the conversations that we've had of a community, not even community, just a culture moving forward, that is something that we know not to do. So again, more of a lesson learned for anyone who was privy to hearing that kind of stuff. And we want to make sure that we pay things forward correctly.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like they also have a like Slim and Tony have a great relationship. They are very very close. So, I imagine that in some respects, like between the two of them, there may be things that are a little bit more okay in terms of the way that they refer to each other and the way that they speak to each other. But again, as Brian said, like as we think about things as a community and pushing forward, like that's not the way that we want to treat, or at least for us, that's not the way that we would like to treat, um, our peers and elders.
Yeah, like yeah. Sorry, I just like got angry thinking about someone calling like Tosh like the girl. I'd be like, nah, son, no,
That's not how it
it
works.
no. But again, different times and different things that we are prioritizing.
the the
But
the
I was
vocabulary
gonna
moves on.
say the vocabulary moves on and it evolves, and hopefully we all can move and evolve alongside it. But I had asked you, I said that we should both write something about Campbell locking and just our thoughts in general. I should not have read yours because it completely took away all of my fuel because I was just like, damn, that was so good. It was way more concise than I was going for. So I had to take a huge break and kind of reassess how I want to speak about it because it is very long.
Well, was it that
But
concise though? Because it was like five squares of pictures on my Instagram.
I think considering how difficult of a topic it is to talk about in all ranges,
Hmm.
I think you did a great job. Because at this point, we have a podcast and it's taking a month's worth to talk about it from different angles and different people and different generations. There's a lot to talk about with it because we want to make sure, again, that we're doing the due diligence that we can. Like whether we're talking towards our elders or to our peers, or towards the future, there's a lot that goes with it. Um, yeah, first off, like great job. I thought it was a great post. There was a lot of like it seemed like a lot of positive feedback. I didn't see anything negative, I believe. How did you feel like
Oh man,
writing it, receiving?
to be 100% honest with you, I was just kind of like in like a really sleep deprived, like I was literally about to go to sleep, and I was like, you want to know what? Like let's just bang out thoughts. Um, because I think like right before you're about to hit the sack, and even if you're not in a place of like hey, like I want to talk about something, like that's when thoughts kind of coalesce for the day. Like you've expended all of your daily energy. You've been doing whatever you do. In that case, I think I had work that day, um working on different projects and just going through the motions. um and I think like for myself it was more like, okay, well, you want to know, well, like these are all the things that have been weighing on me, and I kind of want to journal it out. But I also know if I write it into like this long texty form of things, um it's very difficult to read on Instagram. So I was like, you want to know what? I'm just going to open up notes and see what happens, and just make sure that it's formatted so that I can cut it out. Um, and I just wrote it. I don't think it was super thought out in that sense. Like it's not like I composed it, right. Um, but yeah, just putting it out on the internet and then waking up and just seeing positivity. And I think like it's something that I say on this podcast all the time, but for us, I think the impetus for us to do this is to spark more conversations and to have people really think about, what does it mean to be a locker? What does it mean to be a Campbell locker? What are the issues that are relevant to us as not just dancers, but stewards of a culture and a community? And I don't put that title on just us. I put that title on anyone practicing our art form. We are all stewards of this culture and this community. So, with respect to that, um, just the fact that people resonate with it, and even if you don't agree, right? And I do know people who didn't agree with it because they view it as being Campbell locking, and locking is two different separate things. And I understand where that mentality and where that thought comes from. But being able to at least relate why I came from that position and swung to understanding that, hey, Campbell locking is the source. If we didn't have this, like, just because you add more to it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to change the name. We are still keeping the root of what it is and expanding on it. But we are reclaiming the name because that's what we originally called it. That's what was originally called. And all we are doing is not just, we're not taking away from it. We are just giving back the name to Don. And I think that
Yeah,
that's really what I wanted to hit home the most, is that so much about gratitude. And I think everyone also feels gratitude, you know?
yeah.
And I think that that was the big takeaway for me.
I would say it's really important too that you spoke about it the way that you did, like you in particular, because you had that stance prior to this. And for you to show your thought process and how you see things now and what you're prioritizing because of the respect that you want to give is huge. So like really hats off to you, dude. I will have a post out that will probably be a book, but I think you did it really well. Like you when I start writing, I start thinking about like all the potential fires that I think need putting out, and I think that you did that very well. So like, thank you for doing that, and I'm sorry I didn't do it on my end. I shouldn't
No,
have read yours.
it is all good, because I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, one of the things that that we talk about here is being able to, again, just like be able, not necessarily like stop problems. Like, both you and I are very, like, you're a QA person. I come from restaurants, and we're always doing some sort of problem solving. We're always doing some sort of fixing, right? And I think for me it was less about, like, let's stop, like, let's solve, like, let's prevent some problems. Like, I wasn't trying to be in that, like, mental mode. It was more like, you want to know what? Here's what here's the way that I process things, and here is my logic for getting there, and I hope you feel the same way. And if you don't feel the same way, like I said, it's okay, because at the end of the day, we both do the same style. And if you love it and you care about it, then you argue because you care about it so deeply that you want to say something, that you have an opinion, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't like to think that there are sides to this. It's just everyone speaking their thoughts and their feelings and their sometimes not even opinions. It's just more like their lived truth versus ours, and they don't like line up very well, but they're still all the truths, right? You can read Kai Star's post on the Let's Talk Locking Instagram if you want to have a refresher on that, and also just to have more context. I want to throw it to the chat really quick. We had a Harry uh, say earlier, like to me, well, one of the biggest benefit of calling Campbell locking is that letting people know locking and Campbell locking are the same, not two different styles. And I 100% agree with that. And I think that line of thinking too is really going to depend on your local community. Like, how much do you need to be reclaiming it in all forms or whatever forms you decide, whether that's what you name your events or name your workshops. Like, you will know better how much that needs to happen. I'm also like thinking there's probably going to be a time where people are going to be like, "What's camel locking?"
I
You know
think
what I mean?
I think we've already been there. In like I said earlier, in different parts of the world, there are people who are like, "What's camel locking?" They have no idea.
Yeah. I'm also just thinking of like regular Joe Schmo who's like going into a studio for the first time and looking over what classes you have, and then you see like K-pop and popping and camel locking, and it's like, okay, I know two of those things. What is that? And it's more of it can be a good thing of like now someone is curious because now it feels like an out there name. To be honest, it really does. So I'm really curious to see how it is going to be for people outside of the realm of dance coming into it, and that's the name that you run into first, because that's very interesting to me.
I mean, like it could
And
be. Sorry to
okay,
interrupt. It could be just like what how Epic and Riot and Glitch were talking about, where it's like they all know it as the rerun. They all know Penguin as the rerun. And so, like, if you were to walk into a studio and you see a locking class, and all of a sudden, like, oh, that guy's doing the rerun, it is the same paradigm shift, except now we're going one step back because you got the rerun to the locking, and then you got the locking to the Campbell locking, but it's still the same thing.
I'm also thinking too that I think just changing the name, or not changing it, but changing it for people who would see it in a class for the first time, right? I think what's really cool is it when someone breaks down why it's called Campbell locking, I think it actually makes way more sense to be like, there was a dude that danced like this, and we want to dance like that. Because it's not really in the name of what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
I think
one,
people try to make like fancy descriptions of what the lock movement or action is, and honestly, you just gotta do it. You just gotta dance and stop, and you might feel some of that magic of like why it's so powerful.
I think also the kind of crazy thing is that people look at this and they're like, okay, well, like, so I'm Campbell locking. Does that mean that I have to dance like Dawn? And let's be totally honest, like I'm not the sort of person that can dance like Dawn. Like I like his body movement, the way that he does things, I love it. It's powerful. It's not the stuff that fits me well. And I kind of recognize that for myself. So I'm more of a technical sort of person. So the stuff that I end up doing is very much more in line with the way that Greg did things, or the way that Fluky did things, and the way that Shab did things, in the way that Penguin did things. Like those are the things that ended up being a little bit more impactful on me as a dancer, but I can still be very well inspired mentally and spiritually from the message that Dawn put out. So again, the whole idea of moving back to the name of Campbell locking doesn't necessarily take away from any of the influences that we get from any of the other members of the lockers, or members of the not lockers, right? Like if we are looking at Scooby, um if we're looking at Freddy, Netabug, if we're looking at OG Skeeter, Tony Gogo, Buddy Gogo, if we are looking at Alpha, if we're looking at Deputy, if we are looking at Big D, like there are so many names and so many people that were part of the story, right? And just because you make the shift back to using the nomenclature Campbell lock doesn't necessarily take away from any of the value that anybody else brought.
It's interesting, like as you start naming off a lot of like the elders from that era. I always want to be the type to be like, if we were to continue, I want to start naming the generations after, because those were the ones that were also equally impactful to me because I saw them in the ciphers, or I saw them in the competitions, or I just got to see them a little bit more in action. And because I've always been the type like, yes, let's always 100% pay the tribute to our elders, but when is it our story? Or when is it my previous generations? When is it their story? Because I don't want them to ever be overlooked or forgotten either. So like the history book just keeps growing, and I hope and this is for all generations that we continue to know that this book will just keep growing and more names will be a part of it. Um man, as you talked about that, I kind of wanted to get into just talking about locking. Like or just like just the dance. I feel like my locking is fucking on one right now. Like I feel amazing. Like obviously physically I could work on myself better, but from talking on this podcast, like talking to Tosh, Hurricane, and then talking to Hoodlockers and talking to you, I feel like everything is connecting. I feel so connected to the rhythm of what locking is. I feel the ham bone now. And I also realize how much ham bone has always been a part of what I do. Like when I point, I always touch myself. Like with the, you know what I mean? I can't even hide from that one.
Oh, we're going back and redacting that.
But like, yeah, when I point, like my left hand, like, if I point with my right, my left hand will like slap down somewhere on my leg. And I realize I'm like, it's not always at the same time. It's just like it's gonna do it. And so when I kind of like dived into that more, I was like, where else do I tap? Where else do I place my rhythm? And it's not always a drum. Like sometimes I'm hitting like the guitar or the bass, and then the ham bone connects to like my feet, where I'm hitting rhythms with my feet just to like match on dude, I feel amazing. It feels great. Like swear to God.
It's really funny that you put things like that because so spoiler alert, I'm still very good friends with Richie Rich. I went to go hang out and practice with him a little bit the other day, and he was just teaching a basic routine for a couple friends of ours, and you would never believe that like this dude like he's from the 80s, but there are still elements of that ham bone there that he doesn't focus on, but it's there. So he does his prep, he does his up or up lock, however you want to call it, and before he hits the lock, he does this big fat slap on his thighs before he does the lock to kind of teach people how to do stuff, and he still will do it anyways. He'll still do parts of the ham bone that's just that they just fit in naturally. And so I think that that's very like you it's a shared it's a shared value system, right? And I think the
Yeah.
more that you are in touch with the root, or the more that you are in touch with I this is going to sound so territorial, but I think the more that you're close to what we had here in LA back in the day, even by proxy, right? Like you don't have to live in LA. You don't have to be here all the time. But the more that you are connected to the people who are at that source, and the more respect that you pay to that, and the more that you love and care about it, the more it reveals itself to you. And that it sounds like weird and spiritual and all of that, but I think at the same time, like there is a lot of the culture that kind of like seeps back into it.
Yeah. Like the reason I was thinking about like diving more into it is because after hearing Tosh talk about it more, I really asked myself, what is the rhythm of locking? Because when I do like popping or waving, and mind you, I am awful at these things, but I learn how to do them. Mentally, I know the sounds I am trying to make that either go with the music or go on top of the music or inspired by the music. Like there's a rhythm that just kind of happens there. And I hear tick, 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 tack or something, right? I hear boom and shh. Like, and I was always like, why do I have that now in my head? And how come I can't apply that to locking? Like that was like in my first couple years. That's what made me feel like there is something I'm doing wrong here. And it made me want to revisit. And now I'm revisiting it again and asking myself, like, okay, if I just strictly think about doing this dance and staying within this genre, what is the rhythm of it? It has been a very fun question because like it's this is something I don't think like Don would know. I don't know if I could ask the elders that. But it's just something I think is really fun to talk about and think about, and I'm finding some fun answers. Also, if I just look at Firelock, I'm like, there, that's what it is.
See, it's funny that you bring yourself back to that because while you were doing all of like the sound effects and the automatopoeia, I was just thinking in my head, Shazam.
Oh my god. I mean, when I do think about some of the onomatopoeias that I have practiced when it comes to locking, like I remember learning from Mikey P, who's on Group Mechanics too, and his drill was there's no cheating in locking, and that was a up, down, prep, lock, over and over, and you recite that, and then that became my rhythm. That there's no cheating in locking.
Mikey P, man. You want to know? I haven't heard that name in a long time. Wasn't he
Oh,
also?
same.
Wait.
He moved to Vallejo, so he's gone now.
He's never coming back. No, wasn't he originally from Philly as well?
Yes, actually, I believe so. And also, yeah, and he spent a lot of time in New York because of like Chalk and that gang.
Yeah. I am really curious to see if the stories of Mikey and the Hoodlockers overlap. Like I would love to hear more about that.
Same. I actually didn't put that one together. Okay, so man, maybe we'll come back to talking about some of this stuff, but I want to go to Jose's question. I
Okay.
actually been thinking about it. Did you see it? It's
Uh
what's been the toughest moment in your dance career, and how did you overcome it?
where was this?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
I forgot.
I am missing that because I have my Twitch and IG open, but um can you repeat that one more time?
Let me get this for you real quick. Let's see if this
Sorry.
works. What's been the toughest moment in your dance career, and how did you overcome it?
Uh oh man. This is a loaded question for me.
What's funny is like I'm thinking, which one do I pick?
Right? It's like no, I there is one for me, mostly because for the most part, like I've been like non-participatory from the dance side. It's more like the DJing side, and I know like Alan got on my case for like you never quit, but like if we're being honest, like again, I wasn't I wasn't dancing like that, right? Um, if it is while I was dancing, it was being told at an event by one of our elders who's not part of like that first generation but middle generation elder, um that nobody's locking in this competition. Kai, you should know better than this.
Ouch, dude.
Yep. And I remember that. I remember that hard. That shit hurt. That fucked me up for a long, long time. But um I think it also came, and that was something that I got over through time and
Mm,
understanding that one, the process of learning what the dance is something that you mature into, right? And yeah, you should know what you're trying to do, but it doesn't always come out.
Yep.
It doesn't always come out. Like let's be totally honest, right? And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I've seen great things from some people and I've seen very not great things from people, from those same people. And
Yeah.
you can't, it's hard for us to like compartmentalize each solo as its own, because you're not, when you're in these contests, like I still think you're performing, like you're dancing, yeah, but I still think there's more of an element of performance than there is dance, and especially in the modern day. So at the time, like I think at the time when I had that experience, it was still around 2007, 8 ish, 2000, oh no, 2006, 2007 ish, and it was still like I was like fresh into the situation, you know. So I was still learning, and there was certainly an there was certainly like an emphasis for me to know what I should have been doing, because that was the time that I was learning simultaneously from Greg. I was sitting in Sugar Pop's classes. I was still very much hanging out with Richie Rich, hardcore, and learning from him a lot. Taking a lot of inspiration from Loose Caboose, taking a lot of inspiration from Anthony Thomas, taking a lot of or inspiration from Shab and OG Skeet. So it's like I was, like I was in the middle of it, right? But that don't mean come out.
No, I get that, dude. Like, I think something that isn't mentioned often enough is performance anxiety. And then alongside that, there's just dance anxiety and then social anxiety. Like, these things are real. Like, I don't want to just pretend that, like, all of these amazing dancers that, like, you can name a ton that don't have these knocking at their door every time they have to be in public or be on that dance floor. Like, even people will ask, like, do you still get nervous? Like, when you enter battles? Like, oh, hell yeah. Like there's people, there's a moment that I could make great or awful. I know that. I know my superpower. I know what my kryptonite is. It's the same thing. It's me.
Ain't that the
It's
truth,
just
man?
yeah, I'll just be straight up about it cuz like I know that people have told me that sometimes they've seen me at events and the way they perceive me is like I got my shit together. Like I'm hard in this dance. And I'm in my head, I'm just like, man, I just want to go home, like play Halo. Like that was me back then. But no, it's just something you're kind of always figuring out and battling, or just maybe having therapy to figure it out, like what it all means to you, or where that kind of anxiety comes from. And what sucks is like I also felt that kind of pressure from our elders. Like maybe I wasn't like a student like you were to them, but there was still a lot of like the anxiety of like, I gotta show up right now. I would love to show up right now so they say something nice. I also would like to just do okay so someone doesn't say something awful. These are real things that happen in California.
Oh
I
man.
don't know if other places have that same type of weight. I'm sure it happens, but like these were events where any of our OGs would be there and you want to make an impression. And sometimes you make the wrong one. And you watch others make the wrong one or the right one, because even outside of the battle, maybe only one person wins today in that OG's head. So the one thing they have something to say that's nice goes to one person, and the rest of it is it's awful. Or just being ignored. It sucks too.
Oh man. If we're going down that route, like first of all, just let me say, if anyone from BetterHelp is listening, please, we would love a partnership, because God knows that we
Straight
all
up.
we all need like some hardcore therapy, or at least I do. um, but I think especially like, and this isn't to downplay the scenes and the culture of any of the rest of the world, but there is an extra weight that hits knowing that your OGs are part of the community that made this dance, like, and that spread it all over the world. And the Bay Area is just one step removed. It's not that different. And we even the Bay Area, even if it's the Bay Area, like it's still like what, a 4 or 5 hour drive, 6, 7 if you're going slow. But I mean, like let's be realistic. Like it is still very much traveled by all of the people who are in LA and really doing shit. Like all that trauma is there. All that all that all that weight is there, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the word trauma again because if I bring it back to speaking to our elders and we respect hearing them about, I don't believe that we can really help with like a lot of the therapeutic needs that they need for their trauma, but we're down to hear about it, right? We've heard about it for a long time now. Are they willing to hear ours? And that's where I want to like speak up for like us who are respecting elders to be like, are you also getting the somewhat same kind of respect? Sometimes no. I will just say straight up because even just coming from Asian household, I'm sure a lot of other people are just gonna shake their heads right now and be like, I get it, and like I don't have to say nothing. But
I I think a lot of I think like a lot of like non kind of like forward thinking, more conservative like cultural backgrounds will all understand. Like I think black backgrounds won't understand. I think like Latinx like cultures will understand. Like there are things that you just don't say back. Like you don't push back.
yeah,
Right?
100%, yeah, 100%, yeah.
So
Um,
but we
so I want to go ahead.
so we have to like I think that that's one of the reasons why I think it's even so much more important that we, for our generation, have more of these conversations. For anyone who's listening right now, like you're probably in a generation that's not over 50, right? And we are still very much in like this kind of like millennial, maybe Gen X, maybe you're open like that. Um, but millennial, Gen Z, uh like I don't is generation alpha now, right? Like we are all in a place where we can talk about things online and actually have like productive conversations. So please use that to the best of your ability. Anyway, sorry to
Yeah,
sorry to go off on that tangent.
no, all good. Like it also makes me want to remind everybody that like a lot of these concepts of like just even understanding like American patriarchy and inherent racism and generational trauma and difficult conversations. These are new. I didn't learn about this when I was 20. I learned about them in my 30s, so I'm still working on it. We're still working on it. We have a podcast just so we have public therapy. Like
Low
this is
key.
us this is us figuring our shit out. So the reason we're trying to build community is we invite you to practice alongside us. We are nowhere near perfection. We are nowhere near like at an end goal. We are just getting started. And even for like me and Kaistar, something like this, the whole like reclaiming Campbellock thing, this is huge for us to be over like taking onto our shoulders and assisting with others to do it. Because just even like 2 3 years ago in the amidst of COVID, we would want to do nothing with this dance.
Man,
Nothing.
I'll come real clean. And that is to say like I felt real anxiety even thinking about talking to Tosh and Alan on this podcast, or just in general, just because there is so much weight involved with it. And like let's be real. Like this is pretty much like our open therapy session with each other and with the people that come on. But it's also like wading through the concepts and all of the kind of like under the rug or not really talked about things that we all kind of have to process being a part of this community and wanting to care about the community, right? Like so that's why we invite you. Like come talk with us. Like let's work on some shit.
Yeah, we're figuring it out together. Um, so I'm thinking about how to answer Jose's question. Again, it's what's been the toughest moment in your dance career? How did you overcome it? Do you have one in particular for me that you think of when you hear that about me?
This is gonna sound so screwed up, and
Okay.
I apologize. I think for you, maybe it sits at the back of your head more than anything else. Is always feeling like you probably live in the shadow of Omar and Elaine, or at least
Uh-huh.
is that fair to say? Is that a fair assessment?
I think maybe pre 2020, that's
Mm-hmm.
something I could have been really wrestling with because I think I was also still trying to carve out my identity
Yeah,
while I was figuring out my dual identities. Um, but no, as of late, I do not feel that way at all.
yeah,
I do not feel like I am in their shadow. I think especially hanging out with them at Get Lifted, I finally got to feel my role of us all being together and how I assist them and how they assist me, like just how we support each other, and it feels very balanced.
yeah. I think that that's what I was more alluding to because I think you kind of also had that sort of like self epiphany or that sort of like epiphany of like oh shit like I'm really like I don't have to worry about comparing myself even around the time of Whack Crackle Lock 2 when Tosh was up and I started to see that kind of like metamorphosis but I think it was something that you did probably wrestle with a little bit more and I think I saw that the most um through like the World Dance Coliseum uh time when you went with Omar to Japan.
Yeah.
Like I think that was something that I was like, is he okay with with the sort of things that he's like? I didn't know your mental state at that time, and I had that. Like it was just something that I thought may be the case. Maybe I'm assuming, right?
No, it's funny that you mentioned WDC because that was going to be my immediate answer. It is World Dance Coliseum is my toughest moment in my dance career, and I didn't overcome it. I rode on Omar's shoulders. Okay, so this is a multifaceted thing, and I'll try not to take too long with it. But um, it's funny too because it is that win with Omar is still like my highlight. Like on my career resume, like that's what I wanted. I wanted the overseas win. I wanted the win with my bro. We did it. But in all honesty, 90% of it was me riding on his shoulders because I was injured. I think I tore or popped something in my knee, and I was dealing with it like a week or two prior to going to Japan. So I
That's
was
right.
really dealing with that. But oh, I hope Omar's okay with me talking about this, and I don't care if WDC ever sees this. The reason that it was the hardest for me afterwards was the racism that I experienced and Omar experienced on my behalf. And I say this because, and it's weird to say. I don't want to say I'm shitting on like WDC because it's also gonna sound like I'm shitting on a culture altogether. but the way that WDC works is if you win, you are invited to be one of you, the 2-on-2 is invited to be the judge for the following year. So Omar had wanted to enter because he said he wants me to judge. That was his fuel. He said, I'm invited to be the battle guest. I want to enter with you because I want you to do a showcase, a judge showcase the following year and show these people what's up. Because they see you, they see just Asian. But when you dance, it is not that. I want them to see that. That was his fuel. So when he told WDC that they want to bring Little B, they said, no, we want someone American. See, I know you're shaking your head, but there may be other people out there listening to this and being like, what do you mean? And in all honesty, they wanted to see someone white, someone black. And I didn't know this. I didn't know this until I was in Japan. So Omar was fighting with them for a couple of months. And they were always pushing back, being like, no, we don't want Little B. We want you should bring Hurricane. Or what if we get P-Lock to enter with you? He's not even American. He's just white. But that's how they were seeing things. I didn't know how bad it was for Omar until we were having dinner together with Megu, and he just told us everything. He was upset and he was crying because I think it was my first time experiencing someone be really pissed off on behalf of me due to racist things. And I was like, oh, fuck this. I have a bum leg. Let me ride on your shoulder. Let's go win this thing. And we won. We ended up doing it. And that was great, right? But it was the following year where I ran into the same issue. They didn't want me to judge for the same exact reason. And I didn't have the energy or fuel to want to fight. And Omar, I didn't want to put him through that again. So we both were just like, you should just go do it. This was not meant to be because of things like that. And that really cut me down for a number of years, for a really long time. And like my partner had to watch and experience me during that downfall and me not knowing I was falling. So overcoming it was a couple of $1,000 worth of therapy later. So if we can get that BetterHelp partnership, I am all about promoting therapy.
What up, BetterHelp? I apologize for dragging like the really unpleasant experience back to the surface. But when I think about just how far you've come, like, cause you went through some shit. Like, you went through some shit, and I don't know, man. I couldn't be more proud of you. Right? Like, I know we're both still going through like our own issues, and we both like still think about and deal with a bunch of stuff. Like, the amount of growth that I've seen in you in the last couple of years, let alone like the past almost 20 years, like 18 years of us being in this specifically this dance, and us knowing each other like longer than that, right? It's just, man, I never would have expected. I could, well, it's not that I never would have expect. It's not that I would never would have expected. It's more like I never would have seen us come this far. You know, I don't think that there would have been any way for me to be like, hey, like, you're gonna have a podcast with Lil B, and we're gonna be talking about all things locking and Campbell locking, and you're gonna be able to like articulate on things that you know, like, we got yelled at for.
Oh, no, tell
in
me about it.
the late
I never would have
2000s.
experienced. I never would have expected. Japan was one of the places I wanted to live. I didn't know they were going to be racist at me. How was I supposed to know?
Oh man.
You ever feel not white enough?
I'll just say this about like having been back and forth to Japan and also speaking the language. The culture is still very insular over there, and I don't just mean Japanese culture. When I specifically talk about Japanese locking culture over there, they have a very specific idea of what things should look like and how things should be done. And this isn't necessarily to criticize them, but the worldview ends up being very narrow. And
Hmm.
so I don't, to that end, I don't know whether it could very well be like a race based thing. It could also have been like a way of saying, like, you're not famous enough, because I can also see that coming from
Oh
them,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Because if you're throwing out names like, you should get Hurricane, you should get P-Lock, like, oh, so it's about getting numbers to come through the door for the event. And
yeah. It's,
and
it's not my fault you haven't been to my local jams where I fucking kill it.
yeah, and I'm not gonna call like I don't mean to call out Yuki and Seto and Nabe like this, because they're, to me, they've always been like nice people. Um, but when you think about like the way that things are organized in Japan, it's very like business forward, and it's really, for better or worse, like just one track minded.
Yeah, it's totally like understandable. It just kind of sucked to be on the receiving end of it,
Oh yeah,
being
no,
like,
100%.
like if there was one person who has the energy and the spirit to kind of like make you question that, you're making it very difficult for me to be there.
Oh dude, I can't even tell you. So man, why not? This is in English. I don't know how many people are gonna out me. But the very first year of that I did Old School Night was back in like 2015. Um, shit, almost 10 years ago. And it was the judges that time were Alan, Shio, and Ray from the Go Go Brothers. And they had asked me to like Hanae-san from Osaka got me hooked up uh with Old School Night, and the music that I played was not like the prelims were like, okay, like, yeah, this is like the locking classics, and Japan loves their classics. But then for the rest of the event, like, I was throwing in some crazy curveballs hard, and I got a lot of back end complaints from a lot of people because the judges were being honest. They saw what happened when people got thrown curveballs and weren't able to adjust. So they are one track minded, and it can be a good thing in one way, it can be a really bad thing in others. So
Yeah,
again, I don't mean like, not trying to take away from your experience, just kind of wanting to give a little bit more context for I don't know, that very conservative mindset of the way that they do things over there. And again, it's not a bad thing, because like shit, they have one of the largest locking communities on the planet. But events wise and the way that you treat people, stick to, perhaps you guys should stick to the promises, or the promises you make.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very big about the competition integrity in all forms, right? Like when it comes to the competitors having an even playing field, but also like you throw events, be about what you're saying. And that's if I was gonna give any real feedback, like that really tainted my view of what they put out. I know they still do great things. There's no doubt about that. But there's a little dark spot there. Brown.
Oh man, skid marks.
Yeah. I I would love if other people in the chat like shared some of their stories, because we're here for it too. Um there was a question that David had for us, which I think could be pretty interesting. How have you seen OGs judge? How do y'all judge? How have you seen peers judge? Pretty loaded question. There's as someone who's competed a lot, there's just always more lessons learned about when someone sits on the judge's seat. Whether you are an organizer working alongside them, or you're a judge alongside them, or you're a competitor that is under the duress of their judgment. I guess I'd like to share a quick story. Yeah, because it's crew now. It's fine. But in like my first year or two, there was a local battle at at in SF at City College. Random 2-on-2 thing. I think I entered with Haji because we were entering everything together at the time. And it was my first time seeing J Smooth and Day Day. They entered together. And I'd been going to some of the group mechanic sessions, and so I've seen Sal, Docklock, around a bunch. I also was pretty close to him. He was the judge. He was one of the judges for that evening. And I remember how much he was talking, like he hated J Smooth. Like he did not like how he danced. As just it's not a personal thing. It was just more like he didn't like the finger tutting, he didn't like the approach, he didn't like any of that. Okay. And I knew this going into that battle. And I'm still new to this, but I was feeling pretty confident in like being able to like do well and show up. Because they were the only other like big names that showed up. And after they did their prelim, Doc is like, dude, he's like the best. J Smooth is awesome. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't understand. And he was loving every round of theirs until they won the whole fucking thing. So just as a lesson learned, and I love Sal to death, dude. I love him. But I saw him go 180 in a matter of a day.
If it happened during prelims, like he came to Jesus like within like the 2 minutes of the of the prelim.
Something about the finger tutting at that time just opened the floodgates. I was like, I don't get it. My lesson learned was some people will just go by how they're feeling that day, regardless of their strong stance that they were very vocal about weeks leading up to it. Okay? It's like as we can say that we know what people judge by, maybe just by like looking at previous events that they judged and who won and who lost and whatever. But there's just so many things to take into account. The energy of the crowd, the energy of the dancers, like literally how that judge is feeling that day. Are their biases feeling very strong? Are they fighting against it? Like there's just so much. And when I used to try to think about all of that, I was really good at it. Straight up, I love the whole battle atmosphere. I loved it, but I just started feeling out the music and the dance and prioritizing that than being the Sherlock of Campbell locking.
Man, um, if we get to like how have I seen OGs judge, I think most of the time I see the elders prioritize a clear sense of showmanship, and that can translate anywhere from blowups and power moves to really, really strong character. And it really depends, like, as Brian was saying, like, on what that person is feeling that day. Um, my peers, I mean, maybe I put way too many people in my peers group, but I think like there's just it's too wide of a range. And I've seen some like really bad judging decisions, and I've seen some really capable judges. Um, I think at the end of the day, if we are talking specifically about competitions, we still need to end up getting back to or getting to some sort of judging system, judging and moving towards some sort of like accreditation, accreditation or what? How I don't know. I don't know the word. Um, but being able to make sure that you are trained to be a judge and having some sort of basis to judge as well, even if it's to learn a system, right? Like we look at breaking, and breaking has multiple systems in place for them to help remove biases, for them to assess presently the things that are going on in their heads, and for them to break down a lot of information in a short period of time. Um, I was in the middle of getting through DJ Renegade and Storm's Trivium system, and then life got in the way, and I'm still procrastinating on it, so I got to get back to that pretty soon. But I think that something like that is pretty important. Now, that being said, I've actually never judged a battle in my life.
I was just thinking that too. I'm curious how you would judge. Because again, it's one thing to talk about it now, and then when it happens on the day, you never fucking know.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think I'll ever. I don't think I've won enough events in order for me to be a judge.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't think it necessarily requires battle experience because I think practitioners of the genres know who's doing better than another this particular day,
Well,
like through whatever
I have
you
a,
just decide.
I have a question for you then. Like, let's put aside like how do people judge really quick, and ask the question: how do people get into the position to be a judge?
Oh man,
Right? Like that is a massive bomb of a question. But at the same time, like if we're thinking about how people judge, and if we're talking about information assessment, um like inevitably the question is going to be who is like where are people's, I don't know, like where are people's backgrounds at, right?
yeah.
Do you win a battle and then all of a sudden get to judge based off the name value or based off the ability that you won something? Like did and we've talked about it here like before, and multiple people have talked about it before, but just because you won a battle doesn't mean that you are a good judge. Also don't mean that you're a great teacher. You could be a great teacher or a great judge and not be good at doing the performative aspect of dancing. That doesn't necessarily say anything about the cult, like about any of the information or any of the culture side of stuff. So I think one of the things that we have to come to, like that one of the difficult truths that we have to come to as a community is sometimes the people that are winning these things should not be anywhere near a judge's seat.
And sometimes the people judging shouldn't be anywhere near that judge's seat. Like, look at Red Bull. The crowd doesn't know what the hell they're looking at. That's more my point
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah.
But this is to put under the microscope the scrutiny of like, yeah, like how and why do some people become judges? And we've been in this for, I'm just gonna say, 2 generations worth at least of people sticking around for 10 years. And I've kind of seen it all. Like everything that you mentioned. Someone won something, maybe they're like a year into their dance, and now they're judging. Maybe too soon. Because a lot of other things come with judging. Because you will be questioned. Are you a good teacher? Are you a good person? Do you have good sensibility? Are you great with people? Is your name big? Are you here to get your name bigger? Like are you cheap? Because organizers, like these are real.
You'll
Are
judge
you from overseas?
you'll
Why?
you'll judge for $50, right?
So it's weird because let's say you asked me that my first year or two, and I wasn't, close to some of my elders, I might have been like, yeah, because I understood what it meant to be a judge.
Mhm.
I understood that people will see me in a different light. And I didn't have to earn my way through the battles to get to this point. I mean, that was my early career, like as I was thinking about it, right? Like you see the path. The path is stupid. The path is dumb as shit. Learn to dance, enter battle, win, judge, fly overseas, do workshop, more judge. The end. Like you talk about like career path and you can see it. You literally see the ceiling when you start.
And by the way, that career path ends really hard if you get injured.
Yeah, these are all conversations my mom had with me and Omar. Like straight up just telling us how to be real.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And I talked about it with Omar before too, of thinking about like, do we want to, invest our time and life into something else? Because we are not popping Pete. We did not help assist in creating this dance. Like, because that, like, when I think about someone doing it for a living and doing it great and grand and getting all the proper respect and also just willing to do so much work, it's Pete. It's popping Pete. But I didn't make nothing. You know what I mean? He made some shit. He was there.
Oh
So
man.
I like I will never have the same seat. Ever. I know that. So why do other people assume that they will? It's fucking real. You're literally just a celebrity right now.
A celebrity in a really small community.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. I'm just, just be real about it. I say that because I when I talked about the WDC thing and falling off and falling down for a long time, another thing that like really brought me to my knees was thinking, when I started on this journey and I was like escalating through the ranks of the path, I was flying. I feel like I didn't care if there was a ceiling. I just get hit it over and over and over, and I was happy with that. But then I was slapped down by something that had nothing to do with my dance, nothing to do with any of that. And so I thought to myself, if I had a student, that is their path. Why would I bring someone into this path? Why would I talk to someone's parents and be like, this is your son's career choice? This is how much money he'll make? Maybe. And this is how he'll know if he's making it. And that's as far as it goes. Why is that an okay conversation to have? And I say that as primarily someone from America.
Because
What is the path?
because Lord knows that, you know, like America has, and I say this in total sarcasm, that America has the best outlook for dancers. The best. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have
Man, I feel like it's my turn being hella like jaded, and you're coming off positivity from your post and shit. I'm just like
hey man, like
angry.
if we want to get if you want to drag out angry Kaistar, you're more than welcome to do that. Just know that you're
No,
good.
we'll just switch roles for a while. It's nice.
But like I think it's just important to kind of to visit like what our priorities are as a community and what our priorities are as a culture, right? Um so like yeah, we can analyze certainly the what is the judging process. And the judging process is just like pretty much throw shit at a wall to see what sticks.
Yeah,
That's gonna
so much,
that's gonna be what it
so
is.
much of my career has been watching events and people do that. Just fuck around and find out and lose a lot of money and break a lot of people's hearts because you did not try to work as a community to figure something out. Like the reason I am very hesitant to be excited about All Styles is because I watched All Styles grow from nothing to nothing times two because no one has really figured out what they want out of it sometimes, most of the time. And I say that because I watched the dancers, the judges, the DJs, the organizers not know what we were doing. And everyone just tried to figure it out. And it was so frustrating to be a part of. Until it kind of got to a point where like, okay, this is kind of accepted now. Um okay, no, I shouldn't even say that because like you enter all style, what do you think? Do you have to do 10 different styles? Okay. Or be really good at your one style and do it to every kind of song and music? Like it depends on what the organizer's intent is. And I don't think a lot of people have that intent written out and communicated to literally the people that you were relying to show up and perform well.
See,
It's
sorry to interrupt, but a while back, Stretch had a really good point when, like, open style slash all styles was at its peak, and he's like, "What is an all styles category? What does that even mean? Does that mean that everybody has to do all styles? Does everybody need to have proficiency in like breaking, popping, locking, hip hop, house, uh, whacking, Vogue, footwork, gangsta walking slash juking. Like, do we really need to know all these things? What if
sorry, I just remembered a story about that in relation to all of that. I want to share really quick. And it's about my boy Sane. Originally from Korea, lived in the Bay Area, is now living in New York. I was with him at Stretch's event, Step Your Game Up, and they have an all style category. And the way that they do it is that, like, say they had the prelims, they spin a wheel, and the wheel has popping, locking, breaking, house, hip hop, and dance hall. That was important because dude, it's fucking best. So on the wheel, and this is really weird. The wheel, spins, and then the arrow that it points on, the word is upside down, right? But you can read popping upside down pretty easy, right?
okay?
Cool. So the prelims is 2 rounds and like 50 people at a time or something. It was a lot of people. And I remember watching Sane. I think the first one, the first style that they got was like breaking. He grew, he was a breaker, so he did stuff. He's a break dancer. He did all that shit. And then lands on dance hall, and he didn't know what it said because it's upside down. So you see him like turn his head and like read it, and he's like, "What? What is that?" And then he looks around at everybody, and he just like gets in the horse stance and just starts shaking his ass. And I fucking lost my shit, dude. I thought that was the funniest fucking thing. Oh my god.
Sorry, guys. Stream's over. I don't think I can go past that. I don't think anything we talk about today tops that. Holy shit.
Yes. Oh,
Uh, anyway,
I love shit like that. That is the kind of stuff like people asking about events. They're usually just asking who won and how the music was or whatever. Like, no, this is the shit I want to talk about. That shit is funny.
oh, oh my god.
Oh, I see Epic in the Instagram. What's up, man?
Oh man.
And Simo, Cozy. Hello, welcome to the stream.
we oh man, so I guess kind of returning to the competition talk. I think that's a good segue to the other question that we got. It's a long question.
Oh, really quick, I did want to answer
Oh,
like how do I judge?
oh,
And I've talked about this before, but it's super simple. I judge. I'm gonna say three. No, is it three? No, it's two things. It's still just two things. I judge on who's more on beat, because if as soon as someone is off beat or they just can't catch the rhythm, it's such a clear indicator to me that like the other person's probably winning right now. The second thing is who's less awkward. The end.
if that's the case, I'll never win a battle when you judge.
Dude, no, there are some people who have extreme anxiety when they are in the battle. Or like they just you I don't know. You never really know because it's just about who's less awkward. And even at like the highest level, I'm still rating it as that.
Yeah.
Because I mean I could change it and be like, who's doing better, who's more awesome right now. Like no, it's who's less awkward. And I mean that in every sense of like how are you maintaining your rhythm? How's your balance? How's your technique? How's your feel? How's your character? Are any of those awkward? Especially if your intent is to have like great character, but it comes off the message is muddled. Like if people are not understanding what you're going for, or it's a very empty character that has no emotion, like that's kind of awkward to me, right? Because sometimes I don't know. For me, it's easier just to kind of cut it that way. What is the other question?
Well, oh, actually, no. This is my bad. So the other part of the question from I think it was also David was what are problems we see with competition focus if it carries into community things? How do organizers keep a balance? And I think that's a good segue from what we were just talking about. But I don't know. I think at least in my opinion, your organizers got to talk to the judges, the DJs, the MCs. They got to figure their shit out. Like, if you are holding an event, figure out what the fuck you're trying to do. And,
Yeah,
like, we're having conversations right now. We're having communication right now between us as a community. Like, that's the sort of shit that should be happening every single competition because the competitions need to have focus. And if you are just trying to put together pieces that you think will work, sometimes the combination, like communication is the glue that will ensure that things go smoothly. And we all know that shit is going to go sideways at some point or another, like through a dance battle. Like there's like through a dance competition, there's no like I don't think I've ever seen something that goes 100% smooth ever.
I probably have, but I didn't. I'm just judging on the what was less awkward, and I don't remember the high points. But yeah, like just like Kyle was saying, it's really important. I think as an organizer that you have all your ducks lined in a row as best as you can by communicating with everybody. Like I've been to so many events where it feels like the DJ, the judges, the staff, they're all separate entities that are just coming together for the day because of your expertise and your skill set. That's not enough. I think that just like a business, you need to be aligned in in your statement. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here, and how are we going to go about making sure that happens? What kind of winners do we want to see? How do we want the music to be playing? Even just something as simple like, does the DJ cut the music while the MC is talking, or am I playing background noise? Like, just little things. Like, you can set that up for yourself because there's no wrong thing there. It's just wrong if you didn't talk about it. And maybe you get lucky, but let's stop relying on that. Like, try to get everything as best as you can and do trial and error from there instead of just trial and error altogether. And I'll like, even as an example, I was talking to Flower last night, and she wants to throw like a very small locking event before Get Lifted because she has a lot of new students and she wants to help promote. But we can have like a small local battle for people who are now interested in candle locking. And one of her grand ideas is to have a band play for the top four. And I think it's a great idea. She really has already has a great like band that she has in mind that she's talking to. And I asked her things like, or I was saying to her, like, I think one of the things that needs to happen in the top four is the band should continue playing music. Like, don't stop them. They should be able to do what a band does, be on stage and do their thing. We're just working around it. We're working with it because I don't want to take away from what they're doing. They don't need to watch us. They can if they want to, as they're playing, and they can adjust to us if they want. But I would also I'd prefer it if they can come prepared and do their thing, and we get to utilize their skill and the music that they provide for us, and to like cut them off, just because we have to like do the judges 3, 2, 1. Like, nah, that's awkward as shit. So, and when I brought that up, she was saying like that's not something I would have considered. I'm like, well, yeah, like these are the kind of things I like to think about and talk about as an organizer because these things make sense to me. Because again, I want to avoid the least awkward things possible.
I think one thing that we as dancers have to kind of step away from is making everything about dancers.
Yeah.
Because and I will tell you as someone who primarily puts myself as a DJ over a dancer is how is it that you have one person, and I'm not calling out any specific jams, but I will tell you that there are a ton of dance battles, dance contests, jams, whatever you call them, that'll have one or two DJs for the entire thing. And it is just them the entire time. But the judges and the winners get high priority in treatment. It's almost like the DJs are just there as background music. And that shouldn't be the case. Like, maybe, and, like, I feel that more as a DJ because I have to go through it. And I don't think that it's like one event. Like, I don't think that I'm like trying to call out one thing, but it is endemic where it's like, okay, are we really prioritizing the reason why we dance? You know? Like, are we really trying to put the DJs in the best position that they can be in? And I was like, it brings to mind the conversation that Jardy and Mylin had with Moncel recently, where it's like, just because like you can dance to anything doesn't mean that people will dance to anything or want to dance to anything. Like, you have to have people who are capable of not just playing, but you also have to have communication from your organizer so that people know what the assignment is. So I don't know. I feel that a lot more as a DJ. Like,
No, I know it's like something that you and I have talked about privately, even just how much a DJ makes at events. And it's laughable. It's awful. And I think a lot of the people that come to these events don't know that aspect. Like, I don't even know if people think about it, but if they were ever to really find out, I'm pretty sure people would be like, "Wow, maybe we should be passing out the basket like at church and just get this dude some money."
Let's be honest. Like there have been a lot of events that I've either gotten stiffed from getting paid, or for the time that I spent DJing a dance battle, I made less than minimum wage.
Mhm.
I could have gone to my regular job and made way more money. It's kind of sad to think about.
Yeah. And like I used to think about that too, like answering battles. Because let's say I'm spending the $20 and my time. It's literally like for me going to Vegas and gambling.
And with some of the judges out there, it's just random.
No, 100%. It's 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 random. There's so many things out of your control. And it feels that way because I feel like organizers don't really like talk about these things or be together with the competitors or be on the same page as the DJ. Yeah, we can get like super into this because it's just there's so many different perspectives to consider and talk about experiences that we draw on of like I hope that people are doing better. I hope that events are doing better. We are at what is this now? An hour and a half. You can go for like 15 more.
Oh man, you know, like when we talk about events, I don't want to make this go crazy long, and I ain't trying to throw shade at nobody, but if all else fails, put your event on a boat.
Oh man. Talk about gambling, man.
Oh boy, I'm on a boat. Anyway, what up, Ride? It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, what up, man? That is something I do want to start doing on the podcast. I didn't prepare it today,
Uh
but
huh.
it would be nice for us to be able to mention upcoming events, especially big ones. Like just, like even if we're not attending, we know the people that are. I always want to help support organizers that are doing the work. And I have a lot of excitement like
Mm-hmm.
leading up to it. Like even for like Just Debut that wasn't mentioned, but I'm mentioning it now. I'm still always curious, who's going to be taking each country, who's going to be winning it in Paris in the grand stage. I would have loved to do it this year for the American one, but I don't got that kind of money to be on a boat to catch COVID.
See,
I don't know. That's just a big fear thing.
I'm really curious though, because are like, I think that's still the confusing thing for me is like, okay, so is the Washington prelim totally
There's
independent?
two.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's two. There's one on the boat. There's one where you take off from Miami and you will dance to represent your country on that boat. And then I guess it lands somewhere, and then they fly the judges to Washington, and then they have the Washington uh, qualifiers. The timing, man, I'll just say like straight up, like I respect Bruce and everything, but the timing of releasing a lot of this information it just doesn't make it feasible for people to make that money or to make the time off to be able to attend in that amount of short notice, and it is pretty frustrating.
I I don't think it's about giving people that opportunity. I really think that that is, and maybe this is kind of an unfair thing, but I think that it is geared for the people who are, I don't know, like your Twitch or Yelp elite, you know, for the people that have the money and can spend the money, the people who are like the hardcore people who will buy in and can afford it. You know, it is for the haves and not for the have-nots, and that's what the the standard prelims are for. And also kind of like I wonder is the cruise like a self, like a hey, like we're on, like we're gonna have some fun with it. Who gives a shit who comes? We're just gonna see what happens, and let's have a fun ass party cruise.
I think so. I mean, considering their previous American qualifiers, like I get it. Where would you want to travel to in America in December for vacation while doing this event? There's not actually many places that you'd pick. So to be on a cruise actually sounds like a dope thing. I know that the Just Debut name is always going to do what it can to like grow its brand and name in multiple places in the world. It's kind of a dope thing to be able to put on your resume because they don't even have to have footage of anything during the boat. Just have to even just have the footage they have now and be like, this shit's happening. This shit happened. Good enough. It's awesome. Like just from a business standpoint, good shit. That's kind of tight. That's kind of tight. It just sucks for, I think, for the everyman dancer who does not have that silver spoon in their mouth.
I just want them to play T Pain's "I'm on a Boat" at some point during the event.
Yeah,
Play it during the hip hop battle. Do it. That's all I ask. I'm a simple man.
Bruce is a cool dude, but he must not know the current state of the American economy. Yeah,
The
or
world economy, bro. Like straight up, the world economy is in the toilet.
okay, even just like talking numbers wise, like because I looked into it,
Mm-hmm.
if I was gonna be available for it, that's 5 to 700 to fly to Miami, and then on top of that is the $900 to $1,000 ticket for the boat. So
So you,
I'm looking at close to like 1,600 to represent America. And I say this because for me, Justin Boo is my dream. Like I want to win that event. I want to be on that stage. That's always been my dream. So I'm not thinking about this is my time to go meet the Lay Twins. Like, I, cool dudes. That's just I'm not spending that type of money to see that though.
man,
Because again, like to me, again, the spirit of the competition and the integrity of the competition is 100% what I value and what I consider important. And I know this is not his intention, but it feels like for me, it is a little bit of a slap in the face to be like, I am all about wanting to represent my dance in your event on this stage. Yeah.
uh,
But we also have other great events coming up.
yep.
Just off the top of the head, we have Crystallize. I don't know the name of the events that Lockstatic is currently at in Seattle.
Oh man, that is a good question. Uh,
Yeah, he was supposed to send us the information, but this weekend in Seattle, I know there's two events, and I believe Lockstatic's probably already teaching right now, actually.
yep. Oh,
Yeah, we
I got it for you. So there is Groove on the Move in Seattle.
ah
Locking an open style 2-on-2 random pair battle. One of the judges is our good buddy, Joy Boy, Brad from Portland,
oh cool.
originally from Hawaii. And Locker Z is also going to be Locker Z from Korea is also going to be one of the judges as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Locker Z is in town. Where I think Clayton was hoping to get her here to the Bay, but I don't think it worked out. We also have we have Crystallize, where Glitch is going to be the battle guest. Tosh is the judge. That's next weekend, the weekend of October 10th.
Yes.
And the Hoodlockers have Soulflow, I believe,
Yep.
coming up.
Also,
Man, I really want to come out for that party.
that that August 12th date. Saturday, August 12th, Philly, show up.
October 12th? October 12th.
October 12th.
Yeah.
That is a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then Get Lifted. Get Lifted in December.
Yep. Oh, it's exciting.
It is exciting.
I'm very excited for the chance to not just be around with like Omar and Alan again, but to think about being able to be present for a community and like all like one of my big things, like, you know, hoping that we can like all teach together again, but just seeing people light up from being in the same room as them, like I'll never get tired of that. It is the best.
Man. And it was like I think when you started talking about it with me was pretty much right after the first one in July, right? Like you guys were trying to
Yeah.
put it back together. You guys were trying to put it together like early, like late July, early August, from what I recall.
Yeah.
So we're now like halfway there. It's the beginning of October and time is flying.
Yeah, it really is. You gotta start putting out flyers and stuff because everything's pretty set. It's just getting the word out there better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, well, we'll do a better job about making an event list that we're wanting to help like talk about and promote. 'Cause yeah, I think that's one of the best ways that we can help use our platform to help elevate what people are doing.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us like to do this anyway. Like I like to keep an eye on events. Like even if I can't go, and I like knowing how the competition went and stuff. So hope you guys enjoy being along in the ride for some of that kind of stuff.
Being like, if I entered, I would have won.
No, I'm so much past that.
Right. I think.
Yeah. Used
Oh man. I remember when I was younger, just being like, "Fuck that! I could do so much better." And now I'm like, "Meh, it's not about that."
Oh, like I know we should wrap up soon, but like even just really quickly, I entered a battle 2 weeks ago in
Oh,
Sacramento.
that's right.
Uh, Function, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The event was really cool, really fun. Like I would love to talk about more of that part. I'm gonna be very selfish, and I was so happy with my rounds. Very happy with my rounds. And just to give you context, the weekend prior to that, I fucked up my hip. Like I could not walk well. So I was in bed or doing this podcast. That was like my whole week. And then we last minute went to that event and I saw Empty Pop there and I was like, what the hell? And he's like seriously, it's random. I'm gonna say it's like kind of a small event at this small new studio. That was really cool. It was like great people and everything. But Empty Pop was there, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" I didn't even know he was in the Bay. So I was like, "I'm gonna enter, because I want to dance with Empty. I want to have an exchange with Empty." There is not that many people that I could name that would like make me feel that way of like I wasn't going to do this, but now I have to. And it's not about the competition, it's not about winning, it's not about the money. I want a chance for us to elevate each other. And I've loved MT for a very long time. Like I first met that dude like about 10 years ago in Thailand. And so when he started blowing up, dude, I was so happy for him. And when I watch him dance, he makes me think that he grew up in the Bay Area, and that shit makes me so proud. Cause like I get it. It just he makes me feel like home. Straight up. Like I see the Playboys, I see like this the Bay Area mentality, and it's just ugh. So when I see him dance And to think that I had an opportunity to be able to go against him, and then we end up being in the same bracket, I was like, I just need my hip to fucking get me to this battle. I don't care otherwise. But there is something I wanted to mention about just how I carried myself that day, knowing that I had kind of an injury. I'll just call it an injury. And I think having my own self handicap made me feel a lot more in control and present with my body. Because I know what it's like to still feel the anxiety of kneeling, feeling like I need to perform and be big and make a moment. And I know what happens to me when I feel those things and I succumb to it. That's my knee drop, that's my jump, and that's my split. Like, that is me reaching. I will just be straight up with it. That is me clawing for creating a moment and being desperate. It's definitely a desperate measure. But not knowing that I couldn't go there or do that, it made me feel so much more connected to the music. So, I don't know, maybe a small lesson learned even just for myself of, like, really just use what you have and be where you are with what you have. Because I felt so good in my rounds. I really, really loved the way that I got to be. I wasn't in battle mode, I just wanted to be with the music, and I was very happy with that. I ended up getting to the finals. I getting through NT-pop in the top 4, which I was like I was already like, when I went up against him, I was like, "Yo, this is your money. I know it's your money. You're here to win. I ain't here to win. I just, you know, I love you." But yeah, I don't know. I'll share the footage sometime, but it's just, again, I think it's really contributing to the fact of how much we've been talking, like, on this podcast, and having the thoughts of Campbell locking and the community and the culture. Like, dude, even the practice session that we went to after having to talk with the hoodlockers, whew, I felt like I understood again.
It's exciting. Like the energy is palpable. You know, like you feel like the people energy, like the community drives a lot of like the personal energy as well. Because we're very like both you and I are very much like people person. Like we won't we don't necessarily always need it, but we definitely want to feel good about the situation that we're in, and having that be a driver in terms of like having a positive outlook to think about or a positive energy to work on when, you know, frankly, we're kind of deprived of having like positive energy in this community for a while, you know. Like I think it's
Yeah,
it's really refreshing, and it's empowering.
yeah. Thanks for letting me share that. It feels, the podcast and these talks have been doing a great deal for me feeling so much better as an artist. It's been really fun. Like, really, really fun.
Public therapy sessions, let's go.
Yeah, straight up.
Like for both you and I, man, like I've had to really kind of like I don't know, reassess a lot of the ways I thought about things. And I think like I look at the conversation about the Campbell Lock in that way as well. You know, it's like we're always able to kind of sit down and really take deep dives and deep thoughts and process through them and condense them and have the community help us through that, you know.
Yeah, and I think the reason I like to bring this up too of what I feel like I'm going through is I'm feeling the benefit from having our conversations. And yes, we have it publicly and stuff, but it's just what's been on my mind
Mm-hmm.
and what I feel like. in my soul right now. Like just even talking to hood lockers, I'm like, how hood am I? Like it really made me think that way because I was just like, I would love for them to recognize me like that. And it's just as a small wishful thinking thing, right? Like, do I fit within that realm of that captivates them, right? And it made me feel like I have that, or I'm figuring it out, and it feels really great. So, what I'm trying to say is, I think as you have these conversations, and there's a lot of topics that we've not touched upon as a community, and maybe a lot of you haven't done it just privately, that you get a lot out of it for your dance, for your art, for yourself. Like, again, if BetterHelp can partner with us and support us at some point, I think anything that you can do for your own self therapy, for yourself and your relationships, it's really redeeming. It's very healthy. So yes, on this podcast we very much promote. I know we don't always have the healthiest mindset, but we are doing what we can to get it that way, to be healthy. And the same thing with like the taco and topic of reclaim the Campbell lock. This is all for better health.
But let's be like,
I can't even do it with a straight face.
oh man, low key, there are like way more people that need therapy for that conversation than anyone in our generation does. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna go down that road.
Yeah,
But
but we just
yeah,
talk about where it's relevant to us, and it's to ourselves first.
yeah. And also like, again, I'll say this a million times every stream, but like the impetus is to have the conversations, because if we are able to feel the positive benefits of those conversations, dude, imagine like, and this is just two of us on in this setting, you know? Imagine what happens when more of us as a community start to talk to each other about things and start to open up and not just talk but also listen, to take the time and really process the information and the energy that other people are giving you, you know? And even if it's negative, how do you redirect that into um, a positive endeavor? How do you take a situation that is, you know, totally fucked up and turn it into something that we can all grow from? And I think that it's something that, like both Brian and I struggled for years with, something that we still struggle with. Um, but if this particular podcast can be any kind of barometer for, I don't know, just how much it can positively impact us, you know, like the immense amount of gratitude that I felt for the Instagram post the other day. Like, I don't, I can't remember the last time I felt that much like gratitude for being in this community as a member of the community and not as a student in this case, like I don't know if that makes sense, but like
No, it does.
not to be beholden to my elders, but to be like a peer among my communities and being able to say something and to be able to have people resonate with that and talk back, you know, and communicate. Like, yeah, again, there are people that don't agree, and I'm okay with that because I'm here to listen. I'm here to have that conversation. And I think that positivity that you kind of manifested from being able to, like have these conversations, being able to have that translate over to the dance, like that, like we see the benefits, you know. So I urge everybody out there, let's talk more.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for us to start wrapping up. Better help.
Partnership,
But yeah,
come on.
Yeah, thank you all for watching. Thanks for dropping into the chat. You're great to have some of your questions to answer. These are great for us to answer, to think about, and see the answers that we come up with. Again, we're on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram Live. Please follow, like, subscribe, and all that. Click the ding so you can get notifications when we're live. It's actually really helpful. I do that for a lot of the channels I follow. And come join us in the Let's Talk Locking Discord. It's still a shy community, but we're figuring it out.
Low key, if you want to watch the battle of, or if you want to see the exchange between MT and Lil B, it might be somewhere floating around.
Yeah. Oh, he's the best, dude. he's the best. I, I love that kid.
And what I'm gonna segue, but or not really segue, but not just like comments, follow, subscribe, or not just like follow, subscribe, but also comment. Like the comments, questions, anything, we are always down to cover things that come our way. Because if you are thinking it, chances are that somebody else is. So
Yeah.
let's talk locking.
Yep. So this is Let's Talk Locking, episode 14. Thanks for joining us. I hope you guys have a great week. Later.